Section 1 of a Handbook of the Swahili Language, as spoken at Zanzibar. Read for the Librivox Language Learning Collection, Volume 5. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. Recording by Nicholas James Bridgewater. A Handbook of the Swahili Language, as spoken at Zanzibar. Edited for the University's Mission to Central Africa by Edward Steere. Section 1. Swahili Handbook, Part 1. The Swahili language is spoken by the mixed race of Arabs and Negroes who inhabit the eastern coast of Africa, especially in that part which lies between Lamu and the neighbouring towns on the north, and Cape Delgado on the south. It is classified by Dr. Bleek as one of the Zangian genus of the middle branch of the Bantu languages, that is to say, it belongs to one of the subdivisions of that great family of Negro languages which carries on the work of grammatical inflection by means of changes at the beginning of the word, similar to that whereby in Kafir umuntu, a man, becomes in the plural abantu, people. All these languages divide their nouns into a number of classes which are distinguished by their first syllable, and bring their adjectives, pronouns, and verbs into relation with substantives by the use of corresponding changes in their first syllables. None of these classes denote sex in any way. Dr. Bleek, in his Comparative Grammar of South African Languages, enumerates 18 prefixes which are found in one or other of the languages of this family. But it must be remembered that he reckons by the form of the prefix only, so that the singular and plural forms of most words count as two, while the same form will sometimes answer to two or more forms in the other number. Dr. Bleek's arrangement is the most convenient for this purpose, which is the comparison of the formatives used in different languages. But I have not followed it in this work, because I think that for practical purposes such a classification should be used as will enable the learner who sees or hears the noun in the singular at once to put it into the plural. Prefixes may be counted up separately, but in practice we have to do with nouns, not with prefixes, and a noun cannot be put into a different class when it becomes plural or singular without great risk of confusion. Thus in Fredu's Sechuana grammar, 4 and 6 are the plurals of 3, 10 and 6 are the plurals of 11, and 6 alone is the plural of 5 and 14. Can this be a clear arrangement? I have very little doubt that Dr. Bleek is right in regarding these classes as substantially the same with the genders in most of the European languages, which are even now only sex denoting to a very limited extent. There is a distinction in Swahili as to words which denote living beings, called by Dr. Krapf, not very happily, a masculine gender, though it has no relation to sex, but to life only. It is very puzzling to a beginner, accustomed to languages which change at the end, to find the beginnings of words so very uncertain. Thus he hears that ngema means good, but when he begins to apply his knowledge, he finds that natives use for the English word good not only ngema, but mwema, wema, mema, njema, jema, pema, chema, viema, and quema. Again, yangu means my, but he will hear also wangu, zangu, changu, vyangu, langu, pangu, kwangu, and mwangu. It is necessary, therefore, to get at the very first a firm hold of the fact that in Swahili it is the end and not the beginning of a word which is its substantial and unchanging part. The beginning of the word, when taken to pieces, denotes its number, time, and agreements. The table of concords prefixed to the section on adjectives shows at one view the variables of the language, and when that has been mastered, the difficulties for an English student will be over. The various forms will be explained, and the nicer distinctions mentioned in the grammatical parts of the book. In the preliminary observations prefixed to the second part will be found an account of all the changes which may occur at the end of a word, changes which in practice are very soon mastered, relating, as they chiefly do, to a few points in the conjugation of the verb. There is a broken kind of Swahili in use among foreigners, Indian as well as European, which serves for very many purposes, though it is, of course, utterly useless when one has to speak with exactness, or on subjects not immediately connected with the ordinary affairs of life and commerce. Its rules may be briefly laid down as follows. If you are in doubt about how to make a plural, prefix ma, or use nyingi, that is, many. In conjugating the verb, always put the subject before and the object after it. For the present tense, prefix na. For the past, ma. For the future, ta. For no or not, use hakuna. It is wonderful how intelligible you can make yourself by these few rules, but it is just as wonderful what absurd broken stuff can be made to do duty for English. Let anyone, however, who really wishes to speak the language get the table of concords well into his head by any means he finds best for the purpose, and he will have no need to resort to broken and incorrect ways of talking. Swahili, like all languages of the same family, is very rich in verbs, and poor in adjectives and prepositions. There is nothing corresponding to the English article, the word when standing alone implying the indefinite article, while the definite article can in many cases be expressed by the use and arrangement of the pronouns, but still must often be left unexpressed. Though the verb is etymologically the most important part of speech, it is the substantive which determines the form of all the variable syllables. The substantive will, therefore, be first considered, and next the adjective, which very closely resembles it. The pronouns will come next, as it is by their help that the verb is conjugated, then the verb itself, and after that the minor parts of speech, adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions, and, last of all, the interjections. A sketch of the grammar of each part of speech, which aims at being sufficient for ordinary and practical purposes, is first given, and after that a list of words belonging to that part of speech, thus forming a combined grammar and English Swahili dictionary. The second part consists of a Swahili English vocabulary, and so completes the work. The Swahili language has been hitherto but little written by those who speak it, and they know and use only the purely Arabic alphabet. There are copies of religious and secular verses, and possibly other works, composed in the old and poetical dialect, which is not now, and I believe never was, thoroughly understood by the mass of the people. The modern dialect is used in letters, but they have always a string of Arabic complements at the beginning, and Arabic words and phrases freely interspersed throughout. Anyone who tries to read a letter or a poem written in Arabic characters will at once see why it is impossible to adopt them as the standard Swahili alphabet. It is absolutely necessary to have a good idea of what you are to read before you can read at all. The reason is that Swahili has 5 vowels, Arabic only 3, and of Swahili consonants the Arabic supplies no means of writing ch, g, p, or v, nor can consecutive consonants be written without shocking Arabic notions of propriety. Thus the Swahili are driven to write the b for p and mb, as well as for b, the ghain for g, ng, and ng, as well as for r, the fa for v and mv, as well as for f, the ya for ny, as well as for y, the sheen for ch, as well as for sh, and to omit altogether the n before d, j, y, and z. Initial vowels and consecutive vowels are only to be expressed by hamzas or ains. In the first piece of written Swahili I ever possessed, the story of the ox and the ass, the words ng'ombe and punda were written rube and buda. It will be easily seen how imperfect and ambiguous a means of writing Swahili the Arabic character must be. An instance occurred while I was in Zanzibar of a letter written from Kilwa with the account of a fight, in which it was said that one of the principal men, Amekufa, had died, or Amevuka had got away, and which it was, no one could certainly tell. The last 2 consonants were fa and qaf, with 3 dots over them. If 2 of the dots belonged to the first letter, the man was dead. If 2 belonged to the next letter, he was alive. But the dots were so equally placed that no one could tell how to divide them. If the Arabic had possessed a v, there could have been no mistake. It would no doubt be possible to express Swahili sounds by using letters with additional dots and affixing arbitrary sounds to the letters of prolongation, as is done in Persian and Hindi. But the result would puzzle a genuine Swahili and could never be quite satisfactory in any respect. There seems to be no difficulty in writing Swahili in Roman characters, there being no sound which does not so nearly occur in some European language that the proper way of writing it can be readily fixed upon, and illustrated by an example. When this is the case, there is no need to look for anything further. I think those who try to settle the alphabets of new languages are too apt to forget how essential simplicity is to a really good alphabet. If the Roman alphabet can be made to distinguish all the sounds used in that language, it does all for it that it does for any. To attempt to distinguish the sounds used in that language from the sounds used in another, or to mark all the varieties of tone which occur in speaking, is always useless and embarrassing, and not one man in 1,000 has sufficient accuracy of ear to do it properly. It is practically easier to learn to attach a new sound to a known letter than to learn a new sound and a new letter too, especially when the new letter has to be printed and written, and the learner is entangled in a maze of italics and letters with a point below and a point above, or a line through them, or some Greek letter which has not the sound one gives it in Greek, or some new invention which will fit well neither in printing nor writing, and looks at its ease neither as a capital nor a small letter. It generally happens that the sounds of a language, though not identical with those of another, correspond with them sufficiently to make the corresponding letters appropriate symbols, Thus an English and a French T are not identical, but which nation would, or ought to submit always, to put a dot somewhere about its T to show that it is not the T, which it never will want to use, and never did, and could not pronounce if it met with it? Or to take a stronger instance, ought Germans, Englishmen, and Spaniards always to cross the tails of their J's, or print them in italics, or deform their books with new symbols, merely because they do not pronounce their J's as Frenchmen do theirs? End of section 1 of A Handbook of the Swahili Language as Spoken at Zanzibar by Edward Steere. Section 2 of A Handbook of the Swahili Language as Spoken at Zanzibar by Edward Steere. Read for the Librivox Language Learning Collection, Volume 5. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. Recording by Nicholas James Bridgewater. Section 2. The alphabet. The vowels are to be pronounced as in Italian, the consonants as in English. A in father. B in bear. Ch in cherry, Italian C before I or E. D in do. D occurs very frequently in the Mombasa dialect, where J is used in that of Zanzibar. Ai in chair. F in fine, German V. G in gate, never soft as in genius. H in hat. E in feet. J in joy, sometimes more like dy or di in cordial. French di, German dj, Italian gi. K in calendar. L in long. L and R are generally treated as the same letter. M in man. N in no. O in boy, more like au than the common English O. P in paint. R in raise, an English, not a Scotch, Irish, German, or French R. CL. S in sun, German S. It is never pronounced like a Z, or the English S in arise. S and SH are commonly used for one another indiscriminately. T in ten. T frequently occurs in the dialect of Mombasa, where CH is used in that of Zanzibar. O in tool. V in very, German W. W in win, French OU. It is merely a U pronounced as a consonant. Y in yonder, German J. It is merely an I pronounced as a consonant. Y is frequently used in the Lamu dialect, where J occurs in that of Zanzibar. Z in zany, German S. Z frequently occurs in the dialect of Lamu, where V is used in that of Zanzibar. There are several sounds introduced from the Arabic which do not occur in purely African words. Gh, the Arabic ghain. It is a guttural G, resembling the Dutch G. It may be obtained by pronouncing a G, as nearly as it can be done, with the mouth wide open. Most Europeans imagine, the first time they hear it, that there is an R sound after the G, but this is a mistake. KH, the Arabic kha. It is a very rough form of the German CH, the Spanish J, or the Scottish CH in loch. It resembles the sound made in trying to raise something in the throat. It may always be replaced in Swahili by a simple H, but never by a K. TH, the four Arabic letters Tha, Dhal, Dad, and Dha. The first of these is the English TH in think, the second that in they. The third and fourth are thicker varieties of the second sound. In Swahili they may all be replaced by a Z. No attempt is ever made to distinguish the last three letters, but as the first is generally marked in pronunciation, it is in the first part of this handbook marked by printing the th in italics, wherever it is to be pronounced as in the English word think. The sound of the English th in that occurs in some Swahili as a dialectic variation for Z. In vulgar Swahili, Z is not merely put for the Arabic th, but th is also put for the Arabic Z, as wadhiri, for waziri, a vizier. There are several compound consonantal sounds which require notice. Ch, ch, a very common sound, representing what is sometimes a t and sometimes ki in other dialects. C is not required for any other sound, as it can always be represented by k when hard and by s when soft. It would probably be an improvement always to write the ch sound by a simple c. Gn, c, ng apostrophe. Kwa, kw, represents the sound of qu in queer. M frequently stands for mu, in which cases it is pronounced with a half-suppressed u sound before it, and is even capable of bearing the accent of the word, as in mtu, a person, where the stress of voice is on the which has a dull nasal semivowel sound, not quite When m occurs before any consonant except b or w, it must have this semivowel sound. M standing for mu has generally its semivowel sound before u. Before a or e it becomes mwa, and before o it frequently loses the u altogether and is pronounced as a simple N has frequently a nasal semivowel sound, a half-suppressed I being suggested by it. N has always this semivowel sound where it is immediately followed by ch, f, h, m, n, or s. Ny, ny, has the sound of the Spanish ñ, the French and Italian gn, the Portuguese nh, and the English ni in companion, only a little thicker and more nasal. Ng apostrophe is a peculiar African sound, much resembling the ng which occurs at the end of many English words. If we could divide longing, thus longing, without at all altering the pronunciation, it would come very near the African sound, which is never a final, because all Swahili syllables must end in a vowel. Some prefer to write this sound gn, as it represents the sound given by Germans and others to those letters, when they occur as initial letters in Greek. This sound must be distinguished from the common sound of ng, in which the g distinctly passes on to the following vowel, as in the English word engage. In ng apostrophe, both sounds are heard, but neither passes on to the vowel. Sh, is the Arabic sheen, the English sh, the French ch, the German sch. Sh and s are commonly treated as identical. P, t, k PTK, and possibly some other letters, have occasionally an explosive or aspirated sound, such as an Irishman will often give them. This explosive sound makes no change in the letter, but is an addition to it, probably always marking a suppressed n. Thus upepo is a wind, with both p's smooth as in the English, but the plural, which should regularly be mpepo, is pepo, with a strong explosive sound attached to the first letter. This explosive sound may be marked by an apostrophe. It is, however, very seldom necessary to the sense of a word, and is noticeably smoothed down or omitted by the more refined and Arabized Swahili. There are other niceties of pronunciation which a fine ear may distinguish, but as they are by no means essential, and are seldom noticed by the natives themselves, it is not worth while here to examine them particularly. As a rule, the vowels are all pronounced distinctly, and do not form diphthongs. When, however, a formative particle ending in a is placed before a word beginning with e or e, the two letters coalesce into a long e sound. It is not, however, even in such a case as this, always incorrect to pronounce the two vowels distinctly, though it is not usually done. The instances of and rules for this union of sound will be found where the several prefixes which give occasion to it are dealt with. When two vowels come together at the end of a word, they are often to the ear one syllable, and have the sound of a diphthong. They are really, however, two syllables, of which the former bears the accent. This is at once apparent in the Merima dialect, in which an L is put between the vowels. Thus kufa, to be of use, which sounds as if written Kufa with an accent, is in the Merima dialect kufala. The shifting of the accent sometimes shows that the vowels are really separate. Thus a common fruit tree is called mzambarao, in which word the last two vowels apparently unite into a sound like that in the English word how. But when ni is added, making mzambarauni, as the Zambaran tree, the name of one of the quarters of Zanzibar, the u is quite separated from the a, and the last two syllables are pronounced like the English ony, uni. It may be assumed in all cases in which two vowels come together that an L has been omitted between them, and will appear in some modification of the word or in its derivatives. The shifting of the accent above referred to takes place in obedience to the universal rule in Swahili that the main accent of the word is always put upon the last syllable but one, a rule which often changes the sound of a word so materially as to baffle a beginner in his endeavour to seize and retain it. The syllable ni is the chief disturber of accents, and words which end in it may be always suspected of being plural imperatives if they are verbs, or of being in what is known as the locative case if they are nouns. There are only a few words which end in ni in their simple forms. The formation or division of syllables is so closely connected with the powers of the letters that this will be a proper place to mention it. The rule is that all Swahili syllables end in a vowel, and that the vowel must be preceded only by a single consonant, or by one preceded by n or m, or followed by w or y. There are a few half-assimilated Arabic words in which double consonants occur, but there is a strong tendency in all such cases to drop one of the consonants and attach the other to the vowel which follows them. W can be placed after all the other consonants, simple and compound, except perhaps F and V. Y can follow F, N, and V. These two letters are used in the formation of verbs. W being the sign of the passive, and Y being used to give a transitive meaning. In several cases, FY stands for PY. PY occurs in one word only, mpya, new. N can be placed before D, G, J, Y, and Z. M can be placed before B, and perhaps CH and V. M in these instances represents an N used as a substantival and adjectival prefix. Used in this way, N before B becomes M. Before L or R, it changes the L or R into D, making nd instead of nl or nr. Before W, it changes into M, and the W becomes B, making mb instead of nw. It is curious that W can be made to follow N without any change, but that N cannot be put before W. Before K, P, and T, the N is dropped, and they become K', P', and T'. Before the other letters CH, F, H, M, N, and S, it is merely dropped. The resulting syllables are not always easy of pronunciation to a European, as for instance in kunywa, to drink, nor is it easy to pronounce ngu or nda. But to a native such sounds present no difficulty, whilst he can scarcely pronounce such a word as black. Instances of the division of syllables will be found in the specimen of kinyume, which forms Appendix 1. Kinyume is made by taking the last syllable from the end of a word and putting it at the beginning, so that each instance is a specimen of the native idea as to what letters belong to the final syllable. Some Swahili are very ready at understanding and speaking this enigmatic dialect. At the head of each letter in the second part will be found some observations on its use and pronunciation. End of section 2 of A Handbook of the Swahili Language as Spoken at Zanzibar by Steere. Section 3 of A Handbook of the Swahili Language as Spoken at Zanzibar by Steere. Read for the Librivox Language Learning Collection, Volume 5. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. Recording by Nicholas James Bridgewater. Section 3. Substantives. Swahili nouns have two numbers, singular and plural, which are distinguished by their initial letters. Upon the forms of the substantives depend the forms of all adjectives, pronouns, and verbs governing or governed by them. It is, therefore, necessary to divide them into so many classes as there are different forms, either of substantives or of dependent words, in order to be able to lay down rules for the correct formation of sentences. For this purpose, Swahili substantives may be conveniently divided into 8 classes. 1. Those beginning with M, apostrophe M, MU, or MW in the singular, and which denote living beings. They make their plural by adding M, etc. into wa, mtu, a man, watu, people. The singular prefix represents in all its forms the syllable mu, mu, which is itself very rarely heard. Before a consonant, it is almost always pronounced as a semi-vowel m, with the u sound before rather than after it. Before a and e, the u becomes a consonant, and the prefix appears as mw, moi. Before o and u, the u is very frequently dropped, and the m alone is heard. The prefix is treated as a distinct syllable when followed by a consonant, but very rarely so when followed by a vowel. Mchawi, a wizard. Wachawi, wizards. Mjusi, a lizard. Wajusi, lizards. Mwana, a son. Wana, sons. Mwoga or moga, a coward. Waoga, cowards. Mumishi or mumishi, a cupper. Waumishi, cuppers. When the plural prefix wa is placed before a word beginning with a, the two a's run together and are seldom distinguishable by the ear alone. When wa is placed before a word beginning with e or I, the a flows into the other vowel and produces a long e sound. Mwenzi, a companion. Wenzi, companions. Mwivi, a thief. Wevi, thieves. 2. Substantives beginning with m, apostrophe m, mu, or mw, which do not denote living or animate beings. They make their plural by changing m, etc., into mi. Mti, a tree. Miti, trees. The same observations apply to the singular prefix in this class as in class 1. Mfupa, a bone. Mifupa, bones. Mwanzo, a beginning. Mianzo, beginnings. Mwembe, a mango tree. Miembe, mango trees. Mwiba, a thorn. Miiba or miba, thorns. Moto, a fire. Mioto, fires. The names of trees belong to this class. 3. Those which do not change to form the plural. Nyumba, a house. Nyumba, houses. The simple description of nouns of this class is that they begin with n, followed by some other consonant. It is probable that ni is the ground form of the prefix of this class, since it always appears as ny before a vowel. The singular powers and antipathies of the letter n very much affect the distinctness of this class of nouns. As n must be dropped before ch, f, h, k, p, s, or t, nouns beginning with those letters may belong to this class. Note, there is nothing to show whether nouns beginning with these letters belong to this class or to the fifth, but it is always safest, in cases of doubt, to treat them as belonging to this class, unless some special largeness is intended to be intimated concerning them. Endnote. And as n becomes m before b, v, and w, nouns beginning with mb or mv may belong to it. There is a further complication in Swahili, arising from the fact that foreign words, except only foreign names of persons and offices, whatever their first letters, are correctly placed in this class. The popular instinct, however, refuses this rule, and in the vulgar dialect classes foreign words according to their initial letters, regarding the first syllable as a mere prefix, and treating it accordingly. See also page 20. In some cases, words are handled in this way, even in polite Swahili. Thus the Arabic kitabu, a book, is very often made plural by treating the ki as a prefix, and saying vitabu for books. Kamba, a rope. Kamba, ropes. Mbegu, a seed. Mbegu, seeds. Nyumba, a house. Nyumba, houses. Meza, a table. Meza, tables. Bunduki, a gun. Bunduki, guns. Ndizi, a banana. Ndizi, bananas. Njia, a road. Njia, roads. 4. Those which begin with ki before a consonant, or ch before a vowel. They form their plural by changing ki into v, ch into vy. Kitu, a thing. Vitu, things. Chombo, a vessel. Vyombo, vessels. Substantives are made diminutives by being brought into this class. Mlima, a mountain. Kilima, a hill. Bweta, a box. Kibweta, a little box. If the word stripped of all prefixes is a monosyllable, G must first be prefixed. Mti, a tree. Kijiti, a shrub. Mwiko, a spoon. Kijiko, a little spoon. Words beginning with ki may be turned into diminutives by inserting G after the prefix. Kitwa, a head. Kijitwa, a little head. Kiboko, a hippopotamus. Kijiboko, a little hippopotamus. In regard to animals, the use of the diminutive has a depreciating effect. Mbuzi, a goat. Kibuzi, a poor little goat. 5. Those which make their plural by prefixing ma. Kasha, a chest. Makasha, chests. Nouns are generally brought into this class by rejecting all prefix in the singular. If, however, the word itself begins with a vowel, j is prefixed. If it be a monosyllable, ji is prefixed. Thus j or ji is regularly omitted in the plural, but may be retained to avoid ambiguity, where the regular word would have resembled one formed from another root. Jambo, an affair. Mambo, affairs. Jicho, an eye. Macho, eyes. Jombo, a large vessel. Majombo, large vessels. If the word begin with I or E, the A of the plural prefix coalesces with it and forms a long E. This distinguishes dissyllables with J prefixed from monosyllables with JI prefixed. Gino, a tooth. Meno, not mano, teeth. Foreign names of persons and offices belong to this class. Waziri, a vizier. Mawaziri, viziers. In the vulgar dialect of Zanzibar, all foreign words which have a first syllable that cannot be treated as a prefix are made to belong to this class, and ma is prefixed to form the plural. See page 18. Anything which is to be marked as peculiarly large or important is so described by bringing the word into this class. Mfuko, a bag. Fuko, a very large bag. Mtu, a man. Jitu, a very large man. Nyumba, a house. Jumba, a large house. If a word is already in this class, it may be described as larger by prefixing ji. Matanga, sails. Majitanga, great sails. Maji, water. Mafuta, oil, and other nouns in that form are treated as plurals of this class. 6. Those which begin with u in the singular, they make their plural by changing u into ny before a vowel and n before a consonant. Wimbo, a song. Nyimbo, songs. Udevu, a hair of the beard. Ndevu, hairs of the beard. This class is not a large one, but the formation of its plural is full of apparent irregularities produced by the letter n. 1. All nouns of this class which are in the singular dissyllables only retain the u in the plural and are treated as beginning with a vowel. Ufa, a crack. Nyufa, cracks. Uso, a face. Nyuso, faces. 2. Words in which the u is followed by d, g, j, or z take n in place of u. 3. Words in which the u is followed by l or r take n, but change the l or r into d. Ulimi, a tongue. Ndimi, tongues. 4. Words in which the u is followed by b, v, or w take n, but change it into m, and their first letter is always b. Ubao, a plank. Mbao, planks. Uwingu, a heaven. Mbingu, the heavens. 5. Words in which the u is followed by k, p, or t drop the u and give an explosive sound to the first letter. Upepo, a wind. Pepo, winds. 6. Words in which the u is followed by ch, f, h, n, or s merely drop the u. Ufunguo, a key. Funguo, keys. Nouns of this class are so few in Swahili that it is scarcely worth while to notice these distinctions. They are, however, important as explaining what would otherwise seem anomalies, and represent influences which have a much larger field in other African languages. Abstract nouns generally belong to this class. 7. The one word mahali, place or places, which require special forms in all adjectives and pronouns. 8. The infinitives of verbs used as substantives. All infinitives may be so used, and answer to the English verbal substantives in ing. Kufa, to die, the same as dying. Kuiba, to steal, the same as stealing. All substantives of both numbers may be put into what may be called the locative case by adding ni. This case has 3 great varieties of meaning, which are marked by differences in all dependent pronouns. 1. In, within. 2. Or, from within. 2. At, by, near. 3. To, from, at, of places far off. Nyumbani mwangu, in my house. Nyumbani pangu, near my house. Nyumbani kwangu, to my house. Mtoni, by the river. Njiani, on the road. Vyomboni, in the vessels. Kitwani, in the head. Mbinguni, in heaven. Kuangukani, in falling. The possessive case is expressed by the use of the preposition a, which see. The objective or accusative is the same as the subjective or nominative. In the following list of substantives, the plural form is given in all cases, in which, if commonly used, it is not the same as the singular. End of section 3 of A Handbook of the Swahili Language, as spoken at Zanzibar by Edward Steere. Recorded by Nicholas James Bridgewater. Recorded in Oxford, England.